Hello, hello, Tyler Bryden here. Hope everything is going well. February 1st, 2025. Is it Canada Tariff Celebration Day? I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I'm reading the news. It's supposed to be D-Day here for Canadian tariffs imposed. And there's still a lot of uncertainty going on. So today I'm excited. I'm not going to be recording alone. I've got a good friend, a friend of the show, a longtime companion, and a guy's got a bunch of opinions, very passionate, smart guy who I've known for a long time, Joseph Francis. He's going to jump on here in a second. I'll let him introduce himself a little bit more. And then we've got a ton to go through here. We've obviously got this Canada tariffs part and the USA and all the stuff that's going on. Another crazy week. We've got a look at the actual Canadian economy itself and connected with what's going on. There was a Bank of Canada meeting here this week as well, too. They dropped the rates another 0.25. The US held. Europe dropped another 0.25. So definitely some dispersion between different locations across the world right now. We've got an provincial election. We're getting a little more niche now into the audiences, but a provincial election here in Ontario. I'll probably just lightly touch on that, but pretty interesting set of circumstances that's leading to that taking place. Joe, he's his financial advisor. What are we looking at in investing in 2025? He's a big diversify into S&P and ETFs and things like that. I'm wondering if his perspective has changed at all. So I'll ask him that. And then continuing with some Canadian stuff, we've got Mark Carney, this seemingly installed Canadian new prime minister. We've got Jagmeet, the minority leader, for those who don't know what's going on in Canada here, really, who has been propping up the Liberal Party as a majority in the country. He's wavering back and forth right now on what he's going to do. So very interesting consequences for Canada. And when will this Liberal reign end in Canada, or will it? It's our first time catching up in quite a while. Always love to hear from Joe. He's always got lots of things on his mind. So excited to hear what he has to say, and it should be a great conversation. Nice to see you, sir. Got quite the stash and goatee there, buddy. A little more gray than the last time I saw. What's going on?
COVID.
yeah. Stress
COVID.
of the world.
Yeah, dude, Trump's president. He'll fix it.
Yeah,
Trump
exactly.
Trump will fix it.
Nice
He'll
to
get
see
rid of
you,
my
sir.
gray hair and solve the border at the same time.
You ready to yap a little bit or what?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, the world ended this morning, so let's talk about it.
That's what I was wondering. I don't know. It feels the same so far, but it's a nice sunny day, actually. I don't know the optimism. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. I've already done a little intro, but maybe you could do a quick intro about yourself for anyone who doesn't know you, what you're fired up about, maybe some of the work that you're doing, and then we'll jump right into these topics.
Yeah, financial advisor. I now own my own firm, which is nice. Independent, which is good. Always nice to be independent. But you met me way back in the day.
Yep.
London Innovation Works, King Street, top floor. Sharing furniture up there with all alone up there. And yeah, so been doing this for 8 years, been a financial advisor for 8 years, coming on 9 years in May. Created Budget Boss as my platform to reach the people, talk about finance, and you helped me do that, which was amazing, and trying to keep up and keep going at it. And in terms of job work, yeah, I have lots of clients, manage investments, do insurance, do mortgages. Yeah, that's my day to day. Fired up about a lot of things. It's a fired up world. Let's get fired up, right? Yeah, things are happening.
So you look through the financial lens, but you're pretty highly involved in I would say, political and cultural side. For anyone who, a quick story of Joe, when I first met Joe, you were transitioning, you were working at Krabby Joe's, which was a great fit for your view on the world. Sometimes it was a great brand fit, but you went out on your own. Just quickly, I'd be interested to hear just personally the switch from Canada Life or whatever, Freedom 55, where you were to now being independent. How's that change gone?
It was always the goal anyway, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, in order to be able to take care of clients properly, you need the knowledge, you need to grow in the industry, and you need to get your shit together. But that being said, as time goes on, you either move out or you stay stagnant, right? And
yeah,
ultimately you want your own brand, you want your own thing. So one of the things that they did was mandate that we make a choice. You either join up with a crew of people or become a solopreneur, become your own thing. So I'm like, I'm not going to join with a crew of people because quite frankly, a crew of people don't want me around all so I'll be my own thing. And so, yeah, I created the firm. But yeah, it was March of 2023.
Yeah.
So we're looking at, May of 2023. And we're looking at about coming up on 2 years now. And
congrats, sir.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's nice to not have a boss. There was never really a boss, but there was always like a hierarchy of people.
Yeah.
Now I don't have to really answer anyone, which is nice. But at the same time, I still have the ability to help my clients even more, which to me, that independence is huge, right? Like ultimately, you want to be able to not have someone above you pushing you to do something you may or may not want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when it comes to if you're doing direct to client, it's okay. I want to be able to do that under my own powers, under my own mindset. And if it works, if it doesn't, and it's worked, right? Yeah, you don't, and so it's a net positive all around for me. And I believe it's a huge net positive for my clients. Right.
And you've made it past the 2-year mark, which is, I think statistically, things should get easier, less, maybe not easier, but statistically, you company fail less after if you can make it past that 2-year spot.
What's fascinating about that is we had our onboarding, and there was like 21 of us across the country. Of the 21 of us in it was February of 2016, there's only 2 of us left, me and one other person of the 21. Like you said, made it past the 2-year mark. I don't think any other than that other lady who's killing it, by the way, up in Sudbury. I don't think anyone made it past the 3-year mark of those 21 people, right? So you're right, statistically, right? So it is what it is. But yeah,
doesn't look like you've been using the white-board at all. It looks pretty empty there.
I wiped it off for the pod.
Yeah, exactly, for sure.
Believe me, there was a lot of brainstorming down the phone.
I guess anything you want to go through before we jump into some of these topics that we threw back and forth at each other.
No, I mean, yeah, we'll jump right in, which is cool. But yeah, you talked about me a little bit, but I've been following you on all the socials. You pop up first, Zuckerberg knows. Give Joe Tyler.
Nice.
Yeah,
thank you, sir.
Trump helped him out.
He's not tampering with misinformation anymore. So letting me rise to the
like the straight, unfiltered knowledge that I'm seeking in life in my feed. The second I open it up. Yeah, let's jump into it because I'm liking what you're doing and the topics you discussed.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. I think you were probably just sick of me ranting on my own and you just wanted to add some of your own input there.
Well, 20 minutes, a little bit, but I think the people who know me are just sick of me ranting to them. So I'll rant to someone else.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's, the big topic of the week, of the day, of the month, I don't know, of the year, at least so far here, has obviously been these tariffs that old Trumpy poo's wagging around here. And today, okay, so there was a story, I think this week, that it was going to get pushed to March. And then Trump was like, no, that's not happening.
Yeah. Yesterday morning. It was
Bloomberg reported it. They screwed up, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah. It was supposed to be tomorrow or today. Yesterday it was supposed to be today. Yeah. And midway through the day it was March 1st. And I'm like, I told you. And then now it's today again. And he's golfing.
And there's no public events listed today. There's no real clarity on what's happening here. I'll just list a couple notes I've just got. This is from a CBC. Actually, I'll pop it up on the screen so people don't have to look just at our faces here and get a little bit of context here. Yes. And again, whatever I'm trying to say, if you say something you don't like here, just let me know. Say edit it out, and I'll edit it out. But a couple pics. Again, this is classic Trump thing about. I remember when he was doing the debate and he said, "Do you even have a plan?" And he says, "I've got a concept of a plan." Like it's a lot of vagueness on this, but the levy on, obviously there's this combined interest in Canada, US, oil and gas. So there seems like there's some bending around there. I've heard a lot of talk about steel over the last 24 hours. We had some comment from Mark Carney that apparently, I don't know, that we'll have to talk about at some point here. And then obviously there's a lot of resources here, which Trump, I guess, the overall message that I find he sends, we don't need you, Canada. We have all this stuff at home here. I guess just from your perspective, you're a little deeper into this world. Like, how are you viewing this? What are your not your customers, but your clients asking you about? And what does this look like for Canadians? I'd be interested to hear your perspective.
Okay. In terms of, well, yeah, I mean, it's the topic of the day, year, month, whatever, until something new happens. Even rest in peace, that helicopter that lasted 10 seconds, and people are talking about this. And it's just the constant thing, especially when it comes to investments. And when you manage money, obviously this is the thing. So every month of January, it's all these fund companies saying, given their outlook, what's 2025 going to look like? And this is the big topic. How's this going to affect us? What's it going to do? My take on it is this. Trump's Trump. What puzzles me so much about Trump being Trump is that people are confused about it. What's he going to do? First of all, I don't even think he knows what he's going to do.
Yeah.
But that being said, he just spews off at the mouth, and he's gonna. Like it's gonna be 4 years of that. We already had 4 years of that. We know what it is. We're gonna have 4 more years of that. In terms of the tariffs, though, he's not going to blanket tariff Canada. It's just not. It's not a possibility. All right, our economies are so intertwined. So many things past the border come back, and even more so than that, because it's hard to even determine with some products if it's Canadian or not.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's produced here, but the raw materials come from America, or it's produced there, but the raw materials come from Canada. They put a "Made in USA" sticker on it. Is it American? Is it not? The problem with it that he thinks it'll hurt us more than him. And it's true, it will. That being said, it will hurt his base more than any other average American.
Yeah.
His base is the middle class, his base is lower class in terms of economically people, red states, where any rise in cost for them is horrible. And one of his mandates that he said he was going to do is stop Biden inflation. Yeah, you're not going to help inflation with tariffs. You're not. You're going to hurt it, because the companies that are imposing this is imposed on 25% tariff. It's not okay. 25. We're going to take 25% less profit. That's not how it works. It's going to be passed on to the consumer, obviously. So in that situation, he's not going to do that specifically because it will backfire and hurt his legacy, whatever he's trying to make of a legacy at this period in time. And it's going to hurt him in the polls, and it's going to hurt Republicans come midterms in 2026.
Yeah. I think the piece that I've seen, I've become just, I guess it's just sitting at home, but I throw Bloomberg on the side screen there. I listen to what's going on all day. And obviously what markets don't like is uncertainty as well too. And so he obviously has a lot of measuring going on here through how is the stock market performing. And I think if there is the more uncertainty, which this has definitely brought, that's all I hear people popping onto the things like, okay, everything looks great. American exceptionalism, economy steaming ahead, but we just have this blanket unknown that you're throwing in here. And even through that mechanism yesterday where it was like, oh, they're getting delayed to March, or no, they're back on, like you could literally see the market react, the dollar react.
Yeah. And it's fascinating because a lot of what, and even the first go around for him, Trump 1.0, the first go around, he measured a lot of his success based on how the stock market was doing. And the stock market did very well under his term. It also did well under Biden's term. But beyond that, since he announced these tariffs on Mexico and Canada, and we're robbing Greenland from the Danish, we're going to take all those people and we're going to make Danishes for them. So after he announced that, the Canadian stock market has hit new record highs. Yesterday it tanked at the end of it by the closing bell, but at the same time though, we have steadily gone up for the past 2 months, and the TSX. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, if this is a net positive for America to impose these tariffs and a net negative for Canada, logically the S&P 500 and the American stock exchanges would go up and ours would go down. The only thing it's truly hurting is the loonie. The loonie is getting its ass kicked, right? So in this situation, you're like, okay, why, if this is so bad for our economy, jobs, whatever it may be, is our stock market continually going up?
And what's your read on that? Because I'm again not as invested. I'm investing. I've got even some, I know, Canadian equities in my portfolio, but I'm not following it closely to you. Like, because the stereotype or the narrative around Canada right now is we have no good companies, no productivity, nothing basically. Yeah. So what's driving the TSX? Is it just like a rising boat, or is there something that you can like parse out there that's driving that?
In my mind, when you look at something like this, actual narrative and things that are happening, and it's just proving it to me. I've always thought it, but it's fascinating to watch it happen in real time. Even with this, like the stock market doesn't even believe Trump. That's what it's
interesting.
Right?
Like, yeah.
I mean, what's fascinating to me is that it's working what he's doing. What he's saying, his buffoonery is like Trudeau resigned because of Trump. Let's just totally honest. That's why that happened.
Must have been a tough meeting.
No, sorry. We'll call an Uber. Justin, get out.
Yeah, seriously.
But the stock market doesn't even believe it. So when you look at this, it doesn't make sense. But in its not making sense, makes sense, because it's all bluster, it's all push. And when you look at that, it's okay. Logically, none of this should be occurring, but it is. So the market doesn't even believe him.
But is the narrative, because the other narrative that I don't think people fully believe or understand right now is also the whole narrative is around his reasoning is the border and fentanyl smuggling in. If there was a great report on even say comparing that between Mexico and Canada. Obviously there's, bad stuff happening and there is stuff getting passed through Canadian border to the US and there's now people just walking over the border. So there's understand that there's problems there, but like what to me, that doesn't seem why solely Trump is putting these tariffs on. He talks about this like deficit. I don't know. I guess maybe what's your read on that? And
ultimately, yeah, and there's the narrative behind that. And the thing is about that, his reasoning behind that, secure the border. Okay, like him or not, wherever anyone falls on the political spectrum on this, he's right about that. The border is not secure. We have Mexican cartel fentanyl labs in Canada that are pushing fentanyl into America because the southern border is harder to get across. The northern border is basically like, oh, what do you got? A rocket? Going to America. Yeah. So the issue with it is we need to take care of that. The problem with it is that's his crux of why this is occurring. There's more to it, obviously. But I don't think we'll ever truly know what the real deep down motives are. Trump is the kind of guy where he'll go 10 steps to back off 2 of them, but he's not going to ease you into his world of pain. He's going to punch you in the face. It just happened with Colombia, right? Tariffs, boom. 9th hour or 11th hour, done. Tariffs, no tariffs. That's how he operates. Punch, back off later. And that's what we're experiencing right now. And the thing is about it too, that Canadians need to start thinking about is that, I don't like what he's doing. Who does? It's stupid, right? But it's not, he's only doing that in reaction to us. He's not, who's a bigger threat to America, Canada or China? Clearly China, right? Yet not doing that to China. Why? Because they have an authoritarian dictator who will punch back. We don't, thankfully. But we also have a weak leadership point right now. And Mexico was always his whipping boy in the past and will always be America's whipping boy, sadly. I'm rooting for Mexico. I hope they handle their stuff. But we weren't the whipping boy. We're the whipping boy because we're weak right now.
Yeah.
And he sees it. He's preying on that. It's typical bully behavior, right? And it's going to continue until it doesn't. Until we have a true leader.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think just from my assessment of Trump from that first time to run through is he basically had 4 years to sit and stew and plan on what he would do if he got back into power. And so he does seem a little more prepared and methodical with what he's doing. This part seems less methodical, and people in his own side of supporting Trump don't like this necessarily. So it seems like he has this comment. I don't know if you've seen that little video where he talks about meeting with Trudeau and he says, I thought it was a great meeting. And then I saw Trudeau's press conference after, and I guess so he's he's basically two-faced. So I think there's a personal slight that he has specifically with Trudeau. And then also just obviously this not over, I wouldn't say it. It's just his exertment towards this like woke DEI policy that has obviously overtook America, overtook really the entire globe right now. And he wants to make an example of, I think, a country with close geographical location to him who has followed that mandate and basically wants to destroy him.
Exactly. And what's interesting about it is, like what you said is, I agree with 1,000%. We are the California that's not America, right? So
exactly.
He can't take out his wrath on California fully. Because
he is really,
they are American. Like he needs to be the president of America. We're not American. So we can be the whipping boy. We can be, when I really hate Gavin Newsom in California, Canada's kind of like them. So let's take it out on them. That's the problem right now that people don't understand. It's so reactionary. Like people think about what's happening right now and they think of it as in a vacuum. Like he said this yesterday. I can't believe it. This is a lead up. This is a lead up of years and years. Like you said, he had 4 years to plot and stew of what he would do for the next 4 years. And then he won, overwhelmingly won. I didn't want him to win, but he won. So the American people chose that. We can't get mad at democracy when it doesn't go our way, right? So for him, it's okay. This is, we're the California that he can kick. He can push them around a bit, but he can't fully kick them because they're American. And that's where we're at right now. And Trudeau is like the epitome of that. I'm sorry. The epitome of that is like, this is the guy who I ran against this and I beat it. And this guy's still here. So I'm going to pummel him. He represents all of that. And that's where we're at. That's where
Well,
we're
we've got Trudeau's plan here. He's going to give him some Taylor Swift bracelets, and
I mean, is he
just
winning Super Bowl? Is that what's happening?
I think this is very exciting here. I guess more seriously, again, I obviously there's just misinformation flowing throughout X, so I'll give that disclaimer there. But there's this, I guess, say this happens, and because I don't understand this, I don't, like you said, everything's so connected, it's hard to understand. And from my understanding, there's even like things during mid-production that are being shipped back and forth between Canada before
Unfinished products. Yeah.
Exactly. So then are they tariffed 5 times when they go back? So it's just so much that I don't understand the full consequences. But when you, again, you someone who's like talking to more people about this, how do you view, say, again, we don't know what happened exactly here today. This goes into place. What does 1 week look like? 2 weeks? I know you can't predict it fully, but what do you see as what takes place here?
I see it's a whole lot of nothing. He did impose tariffs his first go around on Canada. I believe it was aluminum, like Canadian aluminum and stuff like that. And it occurred. And then Trudeau was at the height of his powers back then. Trudeau was a very popular prime minister at that time and fought back. And then it just got quiet. Obviously, at the end of Trump's presidency was COVID. So that took over everything, as we all know. But the whole beef with Canada after those aluminum tariffs, and I believe there was one other one, it's like grain or something stupid. But anyway, I think that's just what's going to happen now. It's going to be an issue until it's not, right? Yeah. We're talking about it now because there's not much else to talk about. And then when something else comes and we'll start talking about that, then we won't be talking about this.
Yeah, it's cold in Canada, cold and dark right now. So we're just
Canada hit back with tariffs on Florida. We've snowed on them, so we're New Orleans got snow too. So this is how we fight back. And I really think it's a nothing burger deep down. Now that could be naive of me to say. At the same time, like you said, it's hard to conceptualize how this would even work, given how intertwined our economies are. It cannot work. Is the thing. Like when it's that hard to figure out, there's a reason behind that. It's because it cannot work. It's not a thing. You could target a blanket tariff wouldn't work. Targeting areas, sure. He could maple syrup tariff, whatever, right?
Yeah. That
being said, a blanket tariff does not work specifically because of how intertwined everything is and how blurred it. I'm seeing all these Facebook posts and stuff like that. With Trump doing this, go local, buy Canadian. I'm like, that's an American company. That's an American company. They're like, oh, yeah, go to Tim Hortons instead of Starbucks. I'm like, they're owned by an American company. Restaurant Brands International is an American company. People don't even understand that these things are what they are. And I'm not calling people stupid. I'm just saying it's confusing. And it just cannot work, in my opinion. It's not a possibility. So we'll deal with it until it's to be dealt with. But I don't think it's ever going to come into fruition. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and I flashed that up on that screen. I'm sure that table salt guy, I have no idea who this person is, but he's like you said, I pop up in your feed. He's there every time. So obviously I've engaged with him enough. And he says, okay, one is obviously emergency rate cuts. There's been a huge dispersion in basically rates across the globe right now. Europe did another cut here, Canada, another cut, US holding strong, went from predicted cuts in the last 2 years to now maybe 1 or 2 cuts this year in the US. And maybe that changes because the narrative, one thing I've seen from my Bloomberg now of 2 years steadily watching is no one knows what the hell they're talking about. Is basically the thing I've understood. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the fun about it. Yeah.
You don't know, they don't know, but now that they don't know, so you want more ammunition to know that they don't know.
And so what's your read right now, moving specifically from this Canadian tariffs piece, but I guess just, again, you're paying more attention. You've talked about, okay, TSX is performing. From my feeling, and I'm sure you feel this way, though, most Canadians are not feeling that optimistic right now, talking about possibly like 0 to no GDP growth, especially when you pull out inflated immigration numbers and all these mechanisms that have taken in place. So how do you view Canada right now? And I guess, just what's your feeling? You're talking to a lot of people about this kind of stuff.
And I'm going to talk about it in 2 points because there's 2 different ways of looking at it. There's the stock market way of looking at it. And then there's the everyday life, realistic way of looking at it, like my life, your life, everyday Canadian's life. In terms of the stock market, I wouldn't be worried if I were anyone. If it loses 20% tomorrow, buy. We're due for a correction. So the same things that will make it go up are the same things that will make it go down at certain periods of time. If you have a long-term outlook, it doesn't really matter.
So is the quick question, is the TSX, has it soared past fundamentals the way we've seen in some cases, the S&P 500 with a specific subset of companies and higher PE ratio than normal in the market? Like, where are we? Is it the same?
In terms of that, like there's overbought and underbought companies, right? Obviously
Yeah.
with the S&P 500, the Mag 7's dragging everything up, right?
Yeah.
But now we're seeing a rotation into the other 493, right? And the 493
The
are
orphans.
only worth $50 billion instead of $150 billion. Anyway, but like those smaller, they're massive companies too.
Yeah.
But those 493 are picking up the slack. So in terms of that with Canada's stock market, I never recommend anyone having more than 25 to 30% of their investable assets in Canada anyway. We think we're big because and this will rotate into the next part. We think we're bigger than we are, and we're not. We're a small country. We're a very small country. It feels big because the landmass is huge. I've been here my full life, so have you. It feels this the biggest country in the world. It's really not. We're half the population of England. We're half the 50% of France or whatever. We are very small on the global stage. We bat above our weight class though. Like we do. We've always batted above our weight class.
Part of just being right beside the US, culturally endeared, and maybe even contributions to World War II and things like this prop up.
For sure. And British Commonwealth country that's led the world in many aspects. But at the same time, though, we need to start being realistic about what we are. And that's where I think Trudeau had issues, is that he started acting, okay, we're next, like we are the negotiators for the world. We are the ones who are going to give arms to this country or money to that country. Canada, in its history, has always been a peacekeeping country. Canada, in its history, has donated goods to people around the world forever. We've done that for so long. We weren't the broker of peace, right? We weren't part of that. So where I'm going with that is this. There's the stock market aspect of it. Cool. I think economically and in our day-to-day lives, we're looking at a lost decade for this country. It's going to be a lost decade. We need to regroup, and I'm thinking it's going to take at least till 2030, right? And that's where we're at with that. And it's not, when I say lost decade, I'm not saying lost, oh my God, there's no one's going to have food. We're going to be medieval, killing each other in the streets. What I'm saying is that the life that we knew or the life that we had as Canadians is going to change dramatically. It already has, and it's going to continue, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. It doesn't mean things will be so bad that there'll be bread lines and soup kitchens and stuff like that. What I'm saying is that we need to regroup politically, find out who we are again, and then move with that, and maybe humble ourselves a little bit. And I think that's important specifically because of this. It's not to humble yourself because you're not good. It's to humble yourself. It's like, do your job. We're Canadian. Let's take care of each other. Let's take care of, we help out around the world when we can. But our home is not good right now. Let's fix it.
I would, even just to say, you talked about there's not going to be these bread lines, but this was in Toronto today for the food bank, right? Like four block line here. And so my goal of it never is to be too pessimistic. My core, not a lack of clarity here is I don't understand what changes from now to 2030, because I think we have a very lethargic population. I think, unfortunately, what I've seen is this is one of my big things that I'm really fired up about right now is just like the loss of Canadian pride, which like I think degrades everything. Like you just don't feel like, I noticed that when I go to the park now. I remember growing up, you work for the city or whatever, you go for the park, and it's always a relaxed job. But I just felt there was more effort put into keeping that clean, and it just trickles through society.
Everything,
and so I find that part I don't understand. And then I think the other piece that I've really seen, and I'm now living just in the GTA, which is a move towards a little bit more of a low trust society, which I think is devastating. What I mean, because I remember growing up in Canada in a little more of a rural area, how doors are open. What I mean, there's just nothing that's like the saddest part. Those two, the pride and the low trust, are, I find, devastating for me as someone who grew up in Canada.
One leads to the other, though. One leads to the other. The lack of pride leads to lack of trust. Ultimately, I'm on the ground floor in my building, and outside there's a dumpster. And 5 times a day, someone's going through it. Now, I'm not saying that to bemean the person who's doing it. I'm saying they're doing that because they have to. We're in a situation right now, like you said, the park. People I talk to, when they go to the park, they have to make sure there's no needles or no broken glass while their kids are playing barefoot or whatever. And they don't let their kids play barefoot anymore. But you got to make sure the slide, you go at the bottom. Is there anything at the bottom of the slide? Stuff like that. And it sounds trivial, but
it's visible. It's something you can
yeah.
see it and you feel it very like innately in yourself as someone who's like walking around and living there. And I guess I don't understand fully how we carve ourselves out of that situation, because there was a more distinct, again, there was more, less channels of information coming your way, less identity politics that made groups separate. And then I think overall what's happened, and we're seeing it even push back against, like whatever, sending money to Ukraine or helping in all these, well, some of them have gotten really wacky. We're funding like trans sex education in Ghana. And it's like, why is our money going there? But if Canada here, our home was clean and thriving, I don't think that gets scrutinized so much. I think when you were getting forced into I think the whole world is moving towards, in some ways, a post-globalization to move to a more nationalistic, isolationist environment, because I think everyone's scared right now. And that leads to us not helping our neighbors, both literally on our street here and like also around the world.
Around the world,
This big experiment has failed, basically. This is where it comes to the Mark Carney and the Trudeau and this top-down Davos, WEF, post-nation, post-identity, let everyone freely travel across countries. I think this has proven this experiment has failed. And I don't know if the new experiment is going to work, the Trump experiment, the populist reset that is happening there, but it's obvious. We've sat there for 10 years and watched this experiment play out in Canada, and we can see through the statistics that it hasn't worked.
It's an abject failure, right? And the thing about it, like when people will call this, like socialists or far left people will call this as a capitalist failure. Yeah. This is the decline of capitalism. It's the reverse. This is what happens when you don't have proper capitalism. Yeah. And that's the problem. There's too much socialism that exists, that it's waning on capitalism. And at the end of the day, when you are looking at something like this, right? Now, I'm not a fan of this. I don't like this. It's not like, there's a lot of people that will go around with their fuck Trudeau flag and whatever. It'll be like, oh, this is what I want. I don't want anarchy. I don't want any of that. Yeah. But this is a direct result of that, though. This came from that. If that wasn't so piss poorly managed, this would never have happened. So deep down, when things get confusing, things get tough, what mattered always matters again. Money. And I say this, and it sounds so, like, when I say this to people, some people, oh yeah, make money. Yeah, well, white guy saying that, cool.
Italian, aren't you? Portuguese, close enough.
The only color that really truly matters is green.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
If the economy is going, like you said, if the economy is going well, we gave $60 billion to have save the rhinoceroses and wherever. Cool. We don't care. There's no bread lines. There's no people. There's not 2 million people going to the food bank every month. There's not, interest rates aren't through the roof. We're successful. Let's give some money away. Right now, that's not the case. So the problem is with it, okay, let's get back to the fundamentals. What made Canada a great country? Taking care of each other. And like you said, you don't feel, as you're walking down the street, you don't feel like that's my neighbor. They don't feel like you're their neighbor. At times you break that mentality and you get back to a normal mentality of a Canadian life. But 75% of the day, it's fight or flight, right? You're thinking about this too. It's okay, get off my lawn. It never used to be that way. So we need to get back to what made this country great, because it's still a great country. It's just
we're self-comatosing ourselves into that environment through our own X algorithm feeds and all that stuff. Like, that feeling is both accurate and a reflection of just what you're seeing. But I mean, and there's a lot of unfortunate incentive as, say, a content creator for like the big one. I'm not sure if you see that one because you're not in the GTA. It's like one called Six Buzz, which posts a lot of, I don't know,
right on the
fear mongering. Exactly. And that has led to huge engagement. And so then that creates that cycle. Here we go next. So I guess a couple of things are happening here in Canada. And sometimes I go world global scope, because I know there's a lot of people interested in this, but I think even I'm finding there's a lot more attention specifically on Canada right now, because there's this transition with Trudeau stepping down. There's this, I don't know, to me, what I think most people feel is they don't want to see Canada fall. It's like too much of I get emotional thinking about it, because it's like such a proud country that is so, again, growing up was just so beloved. that it's the whole world doesn't really want to see that. And even in that North American bastion of Western freedom, it was always seen as a little bit more nicer, a little bit more safety net, more empathetic. And so that we don't want, what is the saddest thing? And I sent you that thing the other day, 10 years ago, we went and watched Trudeau speak at that.
Yeah.
We watched that thing. I'm not going to put up that picture. I don't need to see that, but it set back the progressive movement decades. Like, it will never in my mind recover for as long as the memory of this remains. We're not going to see that. And that in a way is a sad thing. Like, I have through this time shifted in a way towards the right and conservative in a way that I could not have imagined being a young person. And I'm not going to regret that movement. It's a necessary function of survival and understanding of the world when you watch this stuff unfold, but it's a really sad thing. And what do you think is next? We've got okay, quick things and I'll go back to you. But we've got Trudeau, who stepped down, but is still a shadow prime minister. We've got Mark, actually, I can see if I can find this picture quickly. We've got this
We need that old white tanker. That I can relate to him. Yeah.
This is the picture. The Spider-Man. They're all pointing at each other. Apparently, like, he is the godfather of Chrystia Freeland's like daughter or son. This is all just an incestual liberal pool of WEF post-nationalist states. That's not taking us anywhere. But okay, so what do you think happens? Then we've got the factor of Jagmeet in here propping up the minority. where are we at, Joe?
Okay, just call a fucking election.
Yeah.
Okay, like, I got to take out the trash later. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to leave it there for a year.
Yeah. Even 3 months, it smells rotten.
It does, right? Like,
especially when raccoons are attacking it. When this is being Trump putting tariffs, you're like ripping apart the bag. So like,
there's an Paul living in my freaking basement now. No, I'm like, just call an election, okay? We're a democracy. First of all, Jagmeet, you can go to hell. You have destroyed that party, a party that I had respect for.
Yeah.
As a liberal, I had respect for the NDP. I didn't vote for them, but I have respect for them. I'm glad they were opposition during the period of time when the Liberal Party failed under Ignatieff and Stéphane Dion, and then Jack Layton basically took the left. The NDP represented the left in Canada under Harper, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, Carney, Freeland, Trudeau, whoever, go away. Go away. We don't like you anymore. I'm a liberal and I voted for that jackass 3 times and I don't like him anymore. Yeah. I will not vote for him again, and I will not vote liberal in this next election. I won't do it. And the whole concept of the conservative boogeyman, okay, fair enough, right? I don't look at myself as a conservative, but at the same time, I would look at myself as the Bill Maher school of liberals, a traditional liberal, and they moved me. I like to think that I didn't move. They moved me, right? So they need to go away. And is it Polyev? I don't know, man. I'm not a big fan of that guy in general, but that's the option right now, and that's a better option than we have, in my opinion.
So what's your understanding of Pierre then? Because I'm still trying to get a read. Obviously, everyone loves his interview where he's eating the apple and whatever. There's all he's a crispy talker. You know, I watched even an interview with his wife. She seems like a very nice person. Yeah. Where are you at with Pierre? And I guess you talk about, okay, this recovery is going to take till 2030. Is that contingent on the Conservative Party going in? How are you? I guess there's a very sharp AB that could happen here. Obviously, the Liberals get reelected, or some funky stuff happens here. There's ideas right now that they want the tariffs to come into place so that then they can suspend the election, push that till October, and even apparently into 2026 through some 5-year clause. And I don't know how conspiratorial that is. I don't know. I don't also doubt that that's something they would do. What I mean? Yeah, exactly. So is Canada's recovery contingent on the Conservative Party? And I guess to me, the thought is, besides that fuckery that maybe occurs, the Liberals not going to win the next election. No, couldn't, unless Pierre is caught on video punching a moose to death and then drowning a woman in maple syrup or something. I don't know. It's just not going to happen, I don't think.
So the issue with it is this, and you're right, like he's going to be our next prime minister, and that's going to happen. It's going to happen hopefully this year. I do not want him as a prime minister. I don't like the guy. That being said, the problems that Canada has right now will not be solved by a liberal.
Yeah.
They're not, and that's the issue with it, right? With conservatism, the only time it becomes popular is when liberalism fails.
Mm.
And ultimately, when you look at a situation like this, and I'm talking about a country like ours, I'm not talking about UK, America, I'm talking about us. The only time really where a right-wing government comes into play is when a liberal government caused problems or had scandals or something, right? The issues that we have right now are not going to be solved by a left-wing party. They're not. They're just not. Left-wing party is not going to curb immigration. A left-wing party is not going to boost up the economy. A left-wing party, and they're already talking about this. Jagmeet was saying this. Jagmeet is the fourth elected official in this country. He has less power than the Bloc Québécois, and yet this guy is speaking as if he's prime minister. Like, oh, when Trump imposes these tariffs, we're going to turn the money printer back on. I'm like, dude, stop. Like, stop. You need to go away, because that's the solution that they would have to fix these problems. How about you solve the problems that Trump wants you to solve? We'll be better for it too. You're not solving it just for Americans. You're solving it for us.
And that's the thought, even that the people we're seeing these crackdowns. It is pretty, depending on how you want to look at, wild, these deportations and these ICE videos that coming out, and that's pushing some people back through the southern border to Mexico. But then the belief is that's going to push people through the Canadian border into Canada too. I don't know how accurate that is. I don't understand that. But there's also, to me, where I see Pierre get a lot of pushback right now, which I think is interesting. It's just a few years ago, he's talking to the Sikh party, Sikh representatives saying, hey, we're going to speed up immigration. We're going to get more immigration in here. And so he's, as I guess is this term, the Overton window, where it seems like he has now, I think, as a requirement, shifted to the opposite, which is we need to curb this, stop it, reverse it, because the Canadian population, for I think one of the first times, I don't know ever if this is true or not, I shouldn't be saying that, but seems pretty starkly against immigration and wants to see deportation, basically. At this point,
or at least at a very minimum, immigration to be curbed and slowed down. Like the issue with it in Q1 of 2024, 250,000 immigrants came into Canada. Okay. My parents are immigrants, right? I am a blessed Canadian based on our immigration policy. That being said, we don't have enough homes for people. Okay.
GTA 7 million people now.
It's crazy. Brampton past Mississauga. My home is Brampton, Ontario. By the way, if you've never been to Brampton, don't go. My hometown, Brampton, just past Mississauga. There's always the little brother of Mississauga. There's Toronto, Mississauga, the big boy, the big brother, and then the little brother was Brampton. Now we're the big brother and Papa Toronto, right? So we have we don't have enough houses for people. Like, we just don't. Okay. You shouldn't have 20 people in a house. That's out of necessity. That's not because people want to live that way. That's out of necessity. So when you look at this, will a liberal party come in, or a left-wing party of some sort come in and solve these problems? Cut red tape, build more houses? We need to treat that like it is World War II and we're collecting cans to melt down to make into bullets to fight the Nazis. That's our war right now. Housing is our war right now.
Are Canadians willing to do that? That's also my question, because that I don't understand either. Is the idea of immigration is obviously the darker side of it, is like cheap labor who's willing to do jobs that Canadians won't do, and Canadians seem even more uppity, despite like your statement around we just have to understand our place in the world and like how our country is. We probably shouldn't be this uppity and being like, no, I refuse to do this. It's probably, you got to do something. But I don't know. We all want to, I'm doing the same thing here. I want to sit behind I got my 3 screens here. I'm comfy and not leave my house and have everything delivered to me and all that. I just don't know if, I guess, necessity will force us to have to do that. What's your read on that?
Correction. It's like the stock market, right?
Yeah.
Stock market, like you're looking at the prices get too high.
Yeah.
This company isn't worth this.
Yeah.
Boom. It's just, we need that correction. And obviously I don't want that, because the problem with something like that is pain will be felt. But at the same, like you said, I don't want to do that job. You should want to do a job. Ultimately, when it comes to that, it's so puzzling to me. And then you have people talking about UBI and stuff like that. I'm like, slow down. Up in the morning, go to work, pay your bills. If everyone just focused on simple things like that, life would be a lot easier, instead of, okay, my dog food gets brought to me by drone. Like, okay. And ultimately, when you're looking at this situation, it's because we lost that. We're a country of people who calloused hands, work hard, do the right thing. And then it became this idea of I should just get what I get because I want it. And that's not a thing. And I think with COVID, really, warped our idea of the way the world is. And a lot of it was just poor messaging from elected officials, just very poor messaging. When you look at a guy like Doug Ford during that period of time, he's not conservative at all, by the way, anyone who thinks he is.
Yeah.
But when you look at the buffoon was the smartest one in the room. Like he just,
Suck.
the doctor, listen to the doctor. I don't know.
Let's put the alcohol everywhere. Let's all get drunk.
Yeah. Let's increase the speeds on the highways, build more of them, and booze. We'll have drive-through booze on the 401, right? But that's the problem with it. We lost sense of, okay, you go to a Tim Hortons, right? And I'm not knocking this, but when you go there, there's no naturalized born Canadians behind the till.
Yeah.
That's okay. I don't care about that. What I'm saying is that wasn't the case 5 years ago. To me,
it's also the stat of youth employment is so high of natural born Canadian youth. But is that because, again, they're getting outcompeted by immigrants who are working those jobs, or they don't want them? I don't understand that. And their parents are like
combination of both. I think mostly you look at the situation. It's mostly those jobs were teenager jobs. I got my first job working at a Country Time Donuts when I was 14, right? Those were teenager jobs or elderly. Which were
good jobs and great learning lessons.
Hey,
I worked at a convenience store. I used to pick rocks. I love that. I don't love it, but those were good lessons and part of the life.
You start to learn what you don't want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. I better go to school or I'll be doing this. So I think that situation with it is okay. We lost that aspect of it. I wouldn't like uppity's whatever word. It could be true, might not be true, might not be the correct word. But yeah, there's a sense of arrogance that we have as Canadians that we really need to humble ourselves, get back to the basics, get our own houses in order. My house, you take care of your house, and then help each other. But
and that's, I think it goes back to, and not to recycle my own thoughts, but it's just back to that pride element or that unifying mission or even identity as Canadians. And I think when that falls apart, then you're not really willing to do those things. It feels less like I'm contributing to something. Obviously, a lot of things going on right now. So I've spent, since we first met, I was building this company. I put almost every dollar I recycled back into that company. I had personally liable loans that I luckily paid off. And so just in the last, I say 2 years, and I obviously should have done it earlier, started my more investment journey and spent a lot of time figuring out some of that stuff myself so that I could at least be not an idiot. Some of that was spurred on by not a bad investment, because I love the house that we have, that variable rate mortgage that I took. And man, that's an expensive lesson to learn. And luckily we're back on the end. We're not quite where we were started. I think 0.99. We're down to 3.74 now. So that's a nice drop. Nice to see some principal getting paid out and not reverse amortization of your mortgage. But anyways, the journey has started. So I pay a lot more attention to this. I've been investing, and you've always been very diversified. Throw your money into the S&Ps and the ETFs. And now obviously what's happened in the last little bit is there's been this huge market weight towards these Mag 7, sometimes Mag 5, sometimes Mag 3. Now, I guess as we head into 2025, what's your view on where we are? You're talking to clients. What are they asking you? And then how are you thinking about investing this year?
Yeah, to me, my investing journey in terms of how I help my clients changed as time goes on, specifically as knowledge. Like I've just gained more knowledge about the industry and what works and what doesn't, and what's the best approach. I've always had a core philosophy. The only thing that's changed is what I utilize to fulfill that philosophy, like the product.
So Trump meme coin or no?
Yeah.
Melania?
Everything in Shitcoin 101. I was going to get the Hawk Tua coin.
Okay,
I heard that did well. But yeah, in terms of that, what's beautiful about it is that it doesn't really need to change given the winds of the time. I believe in well diversified across many sectors, many regions. Obviously the S&P 500, you're talking about the Mag 7 or the Mag Elon or whatever the hell it is, any moment of the day. But yeah, that's dragging up everything. And we're all like, that's the big fish, the shark, and we're all eating what comes out of its mouth and hanging on. And that's cool. But yeah, even that can have issues. And obviously what goes up must come down. Allocation in terms of, with my clients, a little bit of Canada, probably about 50% US, and then international, right? So we're looking at 50% US, 50% everywhere else, right? And in my mind, that's a solid philosophy. It's done well. Are you doing as well as, say, the S&P 500 will do at any given moment? No, at times, because Canada will lag.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're also not, when they have a 20% market correction, you're not feeling that as well. And when they have a subpar year, call it 5% or whatever, which, by the way, like 5% is pretty
Still
freaking
pretty
good.
good. Yeah.
Where's what?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
195% Bitcoin
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, we're spoiled in that sense that we think, okay, this is what happens. This is the way it's going to be. There's other parts of the world that are good investments too, right? So for me, if you stick to that philosophy, you rebalance regularly, and you make sure that people don't have all their eggs in one basket, it's working well for clients. And I'm not getting calls, which means that I'm doing a good job, right?
Yeah.
When I'm not, when the markets are bad, I'm getting calls. When the markets are good. But the part of it that a lot of advisors that have a problem with is that they'll put their clients into solutions that are fed to them. And I was guilty of this when I first started in the industry, specifically because that's all I knew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Branched out and became independent and started to understand a bit more about what's out there. You have to feel that growth when it's occurring. And that's the problem with it, right? If the markets are doing 25% and you did 5, but you're
questions.
there's a big problem, right?
Yeah.
Dog shit funds, the fees may be too high, whatever it may be. There's something's occurring there. You need that 20% year to make up for the negative 5% next year. It will come, right? So you need that. And that's, to me, I don't think that's like a non-negotiable. I think you have to feel the market. If you're an investor, you have to feel the market. You want to, though, right? You want to feel it. Sure, it feels bad at times, but there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, right? So just get there. And it's the day-to-day that people have issues with. It's not so much, they love it when their statement looks good and they don't love it when their statement doesn't look good. But at the same time, are we here to make 200% in 1 year, or are we here to quadruple our money over our lifetime? And that's and it's funny too when people look at that. Oh, the richest people in the world got richer. I'm like, yeah, it's called the 23% S&P 500. That's
and they got a lot of money sitting in that.
You just put everything in an index fund and it went up 20%. So I had 100 billion, now I have 120 billion. That's how that worked.
Yeah.
Like, it's not complicated. At the same time, though, my clients, they had 100,000, now they're 120,000.
Yeah.
500,000, now they have 600,000. Right.
Yeah.
So people aren't thinking about it like they're thinking about it's like, oh, these, that drags everyone up with it too. Yourself, myself. So
there was a shock this week when we touched, and this is what is interesting to me is obviously you're looking through the financial lens. I look somewhat through the technical lens, and I was actually creating some videos on this DeepSeek AI model from China before this hit the market, just because I was starting to see it in the circles that I follow on Twitter and stuff. And what is scary right now to me is this AI narrative that is in some parts propping up the entire market, which is not, which has really been great performance over the last 2 years as that narrative came to exist after, I would say, the release of ChatGPT. But it also shows that there is a pretty finicky ground that we're all standing on when a model coming out of China with relatively little information around it can hit a market so hard in one day. And the idea that, okay, this model took $6 million to train. What happened? This was $1 billion hedge fund with $1 billion invested in technology that then did a small $6 million optimized training round. But that just threw everyone for chaos. And so I guess what's a little scary right now is that it all feels great. Like you said, you're not getting calls right now, but where it seems like they're, with a couple small steps, just like anything in the world, a couple small steps, that story can break pretty quick. And we can see that correction that we're talking about, or that I look at, I'll just point the one example that I'm pissed at every single time. So anyone who follows would like this Palantir company, but you look at the PE of that company, it's 430. It's what the fuck? I guess that part is a little nerve-wracking to me, but you can't just stop because of that. You need to keep that's been your lesson to me throughout all the time, which is just keep investing.
Markets up high, markets down, buy. Ultimately, like in that AI trend, right? It's obviously a thing. What people don't understand about AI, and I honestly, you run an AI company, like I'll bow to you on this knowledge, but what I understand about it is what I don't understand.
Yeah.
I do know one thing though. It is the revolution we're in right now. There's the internet revolution. Before that, there was the industrial revolution. There was the agricultural revolution, talking about the last 150 years. And it changed things forever after that.
Yeah.
And while you're going through it, all of a sudden me and you are working on the farm and we're plowing behind a horse, and you see your neighbor has a tractor. All of a sudden, what the hell is that? And then he's just plowing the field, and it took me and you to do it 5 days, and he did it every day. You don't know what's really happening until it happens. And what's happening right now is that will fundamentally change the way we work for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that though is there's gonna be, just like anything else, there's always the stalwarts and there's pretenders.
Yeah.
And so we got our DeepSeek version coming in. That might be the Temu version or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Here's your 5 for $1. Could be, but there's going to be 10 more like that.
Yeah.
20 more, right? Now, where the money moves will be the large companies using proper companies that aren't fishy, aren't knockoffs, aren't whatever, right? And there's always going to be pretenders, and there's always going to be even people that can just copycat and do it well too. But usually first out the gate is what wins, right? And that's where the companies that are jumping into this right now, and money coming off the shelf, there's so much cash built up. Companies like Apple, Microsoft, whatever, they had so much cash reserves, and they're dumping that into this.
Yeah, exactly.
Not willy-nilly. Like, they're not doing that because
they see something, obviously. Yeah.
They see something, right? And it's going to touch every aspect of life. And I'm not talking about the internet or your company, or I'm talking about the groceries.
Yeah.
Like the bowling alley. It's going to change everything. And it's going to eliminate a lot of jobs, but it's also going to create a ton more jobs.
Yeah.
And and the one thing with technology never replaces this. It just enhances this, right? Me and you talking, it's not going to take my job from me. It's not going to take your job from you. You will just become more efficient by utilizing the proper technology. So if you can't, the computer won't take your job. You own the computer. And then you use the computer to do your job more efficiently. And that's essentially what we're doing right now in terms of AI. There's so much inefficiency that exists, and it's just trying to optimize profitability, which is a necessary evil, sadly.
Yeah.
And sadly, when that happens, heads roll sometimes. Right.
And I just don't know. To me, at the very least, it's going to create a lot more free time for people, positively or no. I'm not sure what we're going to do with all that free time, especially I think as say someone who I used to love making music and that, but now there's this model called Suno where I can go and tell it to create a song. And that would take me 20 hours to make, and it creates it in 15 seconds, and it's like higher quality than me. And so then does that also, it does. Yeah. And what philosophically, what it does to me, at least, maybe I'm just alone in that, but it decreases my incentive to do it, which is a weird thing. What I mean and I don't exactly know how to explain that, but I think as things that felt very human are proven that they are easily replicated and done by technology, it decreases our own appreciation of it in a way, if that makes sense.
There's a renaissance that comes with that too, right?
Yeah.
It's something that you go back 10, 15 years ago or whatever, and you go into a bar and you'd see Labatt, Molson, whatever. Now you're seeing these pale ale.
That's true.
What's beautiful about it, in a sense, it gets gross and it changes things. It changes the way we think and it changes the way we maneuver. Obviously, social media and smartphones have totally changed all of us in that sense. But then there's a lash back where people get back to, it's like making your own food became like the new this. I'm going to grow my own tomato.
Makes sense. Exactly.
In the city, for some reason, someone's doing that, or they're brewing their own beer, or they're whatever. And people always will revert back to, they'll get the technology will just weigh on them. Our minds aren't meant to think that way always. We can live in that world, but we can't be in that world always. And I think people battle back, and then they revert back to our nature state where it's okay. You making your music, you're like, okay, I can just press a button, but that didn't even feel like doing anything. I'm gonna go buy a ukulele and make music, right?
And have feel something, right? And I do think there is. I just saw this, and I'm not sure. I guess I'll ask you if you have anything else you want to talk about this. But I'm going back to the market, and there was all these earnings here last week, and one of the ones that really stuck out to me for some reason was like Royal Caribbean, just had this massive quarter, and it's because I think people are reconnecting to seek these real world experiences, even if some people don't like the idea of being shoved on a ship with a bunch of people you don't know. I know exactly. There's a huge percentage, but that's not what Royal Caribbean is experiencing. They're booked to hell because people need to go back into the real world and see things and feel things. And I think we have spent, even as we've come out of COVID, there is that almost like hangover like experience where a lot of us, I was talking to you about it through the Instagram, is like, I don't leave the house that much.
Yeah.
So then there's me, I can feel myself like seeking that more, trying to do more things in person. And so I do think I think we will see a shift towards more stories like that, where it's these companies that are generating real world experiences start to really grow.
Yeah, and it's actually, that's a fascinating one, Royal Caribbean specifically, because that industry was on supreme life support.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a few years ago, right? That whole segment of the market, they were talking about Chapter 7, right? Like going out of business, right? But yeah, and that's going to occur, right? And it will continue to occur. As much as things change, they end up staying the same, really. And I think ultimately with that, yeah, people are just going to seek that out. They're gonna. I work from home. You work from home, right? I sometimes stare out the window. I'm like, what the?
What's going on out there?
Oh man,
yeah.
But yeah, you need to get out there and you need to see things. You need to be part of society. You need to be part of nature and whatnot. And people will seek that out. And not only that, what's fascinating about it is people will pay a premium for it. So a company like that, where their earnings are through the roof, yeah, I bet prices didn't go down.
Yeah.
They probably went up. And that's okay. It's good for the economy, people enjoying themselves, and it's going to continue. And I hope it does.
Do you still meet your clients in person?
I do when they request it. Yeah. So I leave it up to clients. Some people don't.
Yeah.
So I just ask them, like, some of my best clients I've never met.
Yeah.
Face to face, which spoken on the phone, then one of these, a Teams or Zoom meeting or whatever. But I'm yesterday actually I met a client, but he doesn't do DocuSign, no electronic. Like, oh, so you ever used electronic signature? No. And I'm like,
never will.
Yeah. But yeah, I had to print out paper. Which, yeah, I actually, during COVID, the first few months of it, because they don't want to talk to you, they're too busy killing each other for toilet paper, I went completely digital, right? I had paper files out of the filing cabinet stacks. It's like a 7-stacker. And I scanned it all, bye-bye, shred. In person, if people request it. If not, most of my business is just done on the phone these days. Yeah, just calls. It's not even Teams either. It's not even like a Zoom meeting or anything. People don't even want that. I think Zoom fatigue is set in.
Yeah, for sure.
Just call me and tell me. So I think that's when you're in a collaborative approach, obviously, if you're doing like with your team or you have a group of 10 people, you need to show things to. Sure, that makes sense. But for me, with clients, they just really want to talk to me and tell me what they need. And I just listen and do it. It's changed, and it's, in my opinion, it's changed for the better. I don't wear suits that often, which is great. T-shirt and shorts for the most.
Yeah. Look like, what's that guy, John Fetterman?
Inauguration. And
anything else that you wanted to get off your chest here today? Any other things that you're thinking about right now or firing you up?
Yeah, ultimately, I think we're in a position right now. What's fascinating about it is, like, we saw Jay Powell hold steady, and then Canada with a rate cut. So that's pretty telling, in my opinion. I assume we're going to have several more cuts this year. I think where we're going with that is that we're going to have to go low, just specifically because people who refinanced or bought in the early panic of COVID, which obviously you were buying at that time, or you were part of that market, their 5 years are coming up.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're going from a 2% or 1.75 rate to
4.4. I think a friend just got approved for, which felt horrible back then, but at the time, now when you hear 4.3, you're like, that's pretty good. It's so weird. Perspective changes quick.
I think that's telling, though, because obviously you follow markets. I do on a regular basis as well, where the American exceptionalism aspect of it is in full effect. And I think we are in that spot where these rate cuts are needed. And I think what people need to understand about it is that we are paying for our excesses during COVID. Now, I'm not saying that you did anything wrong, I did anything wrong. I'm not saying any of that, or any individual did anything wrong. I'm saying we didn't handle it properly as a country. And obviously, it's Monday morning quarterback. It's easy to look in hindsight. But at the same time, though, we bemoaned the point of COVID past it needed to be bemoaned. It lasted way longer in our country than it did for most of the world. And I'm not saying it's first of all, it's still, I may have COVID right now, I don't even know. It's still here, but so is the Spanish flu, and COVID will be here forever. doesn't mean the world stops. And I think we stopped our world in this country for far too long during that period of time, and now we're paying for it. And
Yeah.
sadly, that affects everyday Canadians who really did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part about it. So hunker down, take care of your own house, make sure your own financial house is in order, and then everything else really doesn't matter after that point. It sounds selfish, but if everyone did it, things would be perfectly fine. Everyone's
Yeah.
not doing it, so they're not, right?
Yeah.
And if everyone did it, whatever stupid decisions our government makes wouldn't really matter that much. But when you're teetering on the edge, yeah, a small move that Trudeau signs a piece of paper that negatively affects you, yeah, that will negatively affect you. But if you got emergency savings, if you got proper insurance in place, if you got investments that you're adding to on a regular basis, he really can't change your life that much.
Yeah.
He really can't, right? So we're gonna get our ass kicked for the next few years, but we're gonna come out on the other end. How we do is really on an individual basis, like how you do, how I do, right? And that's why we can't let the noise. And it's gonna be a lot of noise for the next 4 years, man. It's that's one of the comedic value of Trump is actually kind of what I like about it. But if it wasn't terrifying, it'd be far more funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just to me though. That's why I didn't want him to win, because I'm just sick of the noise. I'm like, just shut up. Can you just be quiet? Sleepy Joe. I'm like, good. Go to sleep. Just sleep.
Yeah.
Just sleep. Take a nap, Joe. I don't need to hear you talk all day. But that's what we're in store for the next 4 years, and it's gonna have an impact on our lives in terms of our mental stability. I think is the biggest one. So yeah, just focus on your own mental stability and your own personal financial house, and yeah, we'll live.
Yeah, and I think what people do is the transparency, because right now we have a government in prorogue who pops out now and then like the groundhog kind of thing and says something ridiculous and then leaves. They're all coordinated in gray sweaters right now, which I don't understand is going on. And then you've got Trump there every day with a presser, literally talking from his whatever internal thought just pops into his head.
Jackass, like that helicopter hits a plane, 67 people, including servicemen and women, die. Horrible tragedy, and he's talking about DEI hires, and I'm like,
I know.
Can you just pause? That's what I don't like about the guy. It's like, dude, can you be president for an hour, not just that guy in the end of the bar who won't shut up like that? That's my problem with the guy. It's like, dude, 67 people are dead, and 10 hours later, you're talking about the pilot was probably a DEI hire. I'm like, dude, man, shut up. But that's the big problem with it. It's just Trump's Trump, man.
Yeah. Then he comes with where they say, you're going to go check out the site. And he says, what do you want me to go for a swim? And fuck, objectively, that is funny. So it's tough. But I will say, we'll try to end this on a positive note. Like I woke up this morning, it was supposed to be D-Day here. I maybe expected to wake up in the morning, see houses on fire. Everything was over. That's not what I saw. Beautiful day here in Canada. Sunny day. I went for a walk along the water. And the beauty is not just in the eye of the beholder, which I think it is our responsibility to remember and be grateful for what we have here in Canada. But at the same time, objectively, Canada is still one of the best places to be. There's a lot to still be proud about. And I think it's easy to have that lost sometimes. I hope that we can all feel that and just be a little grateful for what we do have. It's always easier to wallow in darkness, but
it's a great, and I think that's where you're at mentally, and that's where I'm at too. It's not, okay, these things are problems, and obviously we all agree that there are problems that are occurring right now, but they're not problems and the problem with it for us is that we're not used to that.
Yeah.
And that it's just call it that our privilege that we've had all our lives, where that was never an issue, where we're like, what is going on here? This is not the Canada I know, quote unquote, or whatever it is, but it's still pretty damn good. And not only that, like you go outside, it's just a beautiful place to be, right? And we are just somewhat a victim of our own success. And we need to batten down a bit and start to humble ourselves in terms of, let's get back to the roots of what makes us the best country in the world, and each other the best neighbors, right? You in the GTA, what are your neighbors doing that are making your life better, and what are you doing that's making their life better? And it's just by being a good neighbor, being a good steward of your household, you're affecting them in a good way.
And I'm surrounded by nice Portuguese immigrants, and they're
There you
wonderful
go.
people. So
Good food. It's good
yeah,
food.
they're good food. I see. I'll look out the window, and I know I should be doing it, but I look out and they're shoveling my driveway.
Yeah.
But then the next day, I go back and do theirs, and so
Yeah,
that
well,
that part makes me feel happy. So I appreciate you ending me with a positive note here, Joe. Appreciate you joining me here. You always got lots of stuff to say, so maybe we'll do this again here in the future, and I'm sure there's going to be some more stories that we can jump into.
1000%. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, see you, buddy.